Everyone tells you moving to the UK will change your life. They talk about the double-decker buses, the charming streets, and fish and chips by the Thames. What no one tells you is, the truth can hit like a cold London drizzle. From culture shock to shocking bills from you speak English, to feeling like a tourist in your own language. This is what life in the UK really feels like. Moving to a new country sounds exciting. You imagine historic streets, cozy cafes, and a new adventure every day. But the reality? It's a mix of wonder, confusion, and sometimes total chaos. In this video, I'm going to take you through my first months living in the UK. From the little surprises nobody warns you about, to the funny, dramatic, and sometimes stressful moments that make life here unforgettable. Everyone jokes about British weather, and yes, it rains a lot. But here's the truth nobody tells you. It's not just rain, it's everything at once. One moment it's sunny, the next it's pouring, and 5 minutes later, hail. Your umbrella useless. Your coat wet within seconds. And don't get me started on wind. It's like the air itself is plotting against you. I remember my first week walking to the corner shop, looking confident in my new jacket. By the time I reached home, I looked like I had swum through the Thames. Lesson learned. The weather is the UK's first culture shock. Dress for battle, not fashion. Everyone warned me London is expensive. I nodded politely, imagining a few extra pounds here and there, maybe a pricier cup of coffee. What no one said is that life here can feel like a full-time job, just to survive financially. Let me break it down. Rent, astronomical. Even a tiny flat, think barely enough space for a bed and a chair, can cost what I used to pay for a full townhouse back home. And that's just rent. Utilities are extra. Internet extra. Council tax extra. I remember signing my first rental contract and thinking, do I need a second mortgage for this place? Groceries? Forget it if you like fresh produce or fancy snacks. Avocado toast isn't just a hip breakfast, it's basically a luxury item. A carton of milk? Pricier than a full breakfast back in Canada. I learned quickly to check every price tag, compare stores, and occasionally sacrifice convenience for savings. Coffee? I walked into a small cafe expecting a simple pick-me-up. 3 eggs, some toast, and a latte, 15s. I stared at the receipt like it was written in hieroglyphics. I couldn't tell if I had purchased breakfast or secretly funded someone's holiday in Paris. And don't get me started on transport costs. An Oyster card top-up feels harmless at first, until you realize you're paying $5 for a 15-minute bus ride. I began calculating every trip like a math exam, adding and subtracting in my head, thinking, if I skip one coffee, I can afford 2 bus rides and still have enough for a sandwich. Even leisure activities have a sticker shock. A night out, dinner, drinks, and a movie can easily hit $60, $80. Shopping for clothes? Let's just say I had to make peace with thrifting and sales apps. The first month I felt like a walking calculator. Every decision became a tiny battle. Can I afford this coffee today or do I wait for tomorrow? Should I cook at home or is the time saved worth $10? Is this cheap grocery store really cheaper? Or am I sacrificing quality I'll regret later? And then I realized something important. Life in the UK is a financial adventure. It's a daily test of planning, patience, and prioritizing. Budgeting isn't optional. It's survival. But here's the funny part. After a while, I started finding joy in it. I became obsessed with deals, discovered hidden markets, and even started making a game out of stretching my money further than I thought possible. What initially felt like a shock transformed into a quirky challenge. Every pound spent became meaningful. Every meal planned a small victory. You speak English, right? You probably think moving to the UK will be simple. After all, it's the same language. Wrong. Here's the catch. The British do speak English, but it's almost like a completely different language. Accents, slang, idioms, and sarcasm are everywhere, and they can make even the simplest conversation feel like a puzzle. Take everyday phrases. Fancy a cuppa? Sounds harmless, but is it tea, coffee, or some mysterious local ritual? I'm knackered. Exhausted, injured, or just dramatically tired. Pop to the loo. A phrase you think you understand, until you realize a loo is just a bathroom. And it's not just the words themselves, it's the speed. In shops, on buses, in pubs, and on the tube, people speak as if their words are racing against the clock. Sentences fly by, often packed with humor, irony, or subtle cultural references. At first, I found myself nodding enthusiastically, smiling politely, and pretending I understood. Inside, I had no idea what was happening. Even seemingly simple interactions can become tricky. Ordering food, asking for directions, or chatting with colleagues often requires decoding accents, picking up on slang, and understanding context. Some words are familiar but completely change meaning depending on tone or region. One morning, I asked a shop assistant for biscuits and ended up with a bag of cookies, not what I expected. On another occasion, a friend said, "I'm just popping out," and disappeared for what felt like hours. Over time, I realized this wasn't confusion, it was immersion. English in the UK is a living, breathing language full of quirks and character. Every day I had to actively listen, observe, and adapt. By the end of my first month, I began to pick up on patterns, understand humor, and even respond appropriately without panic. The lesson is clear. English is not universal. In the UK, it's a puzzle you solve every day, and once you begin to understand it, the language itself becomes part of the adventure. British transportation is iconic. When you think of London, images of red double-decker buses, sleek black cabs, and the famous tube often come to mind. It all looks charming in photos, films, and Instagram posts. Reality, however, is a little different. Navigating the transport system can be confusing, expensive, and at times downright intimidating for newcomers. Take the tube, for example. The London Underground map looks more like abstract art than a navigational tool. Lines crisscross in every direction, and stations seem to multiply the further you travel. Without careful attention, it's very easy to end up in a completely different part of the city than intended. Trains and buses, though efficient, are rarely perfectly punctual. Delays are common, often with minimal warning, and bus stops, some of them don't have clear schedules posted, leaving you guessing when your next bus will arrive. For someone used to driving everywhere, this can feel like stepping into a logistical puzzle. I remember my first tube ride vividly. I confidently stepped onto the platform, trusting the map and my sense of direction, and then promptly got on the wrong line. I traveled 3 stops past my intended destination, ended up in a completely unfamiliar neighborhood, and had a moment of sheer panic. A kind stranger noticed my confusion. They laughed warmly, explained where I should have gotten off, and then vanished into the crowd like a ghost. I was left with a mix of relief, embarrassment, and a new respect for navigating London's underground network. In Canada, situations like this would have been simpler. I could have jumped in a car, relied on GPS, and driven directly to my destination. In the UK, I quickly learned to rely on a combination of smartphone apps, Google Maps, and a lot of intuition. Public transport requires patience, flexibility, and sometimes sheer luck. Over time, I began to appreciate the rhythm of British transport. The tube, once confusing, became a reliable ally. Red buses, which initially seemed slow and unpredictable, proved efficient and frequent. And while the system has its challenges, it also offers a unique view of the city's character, bustling streets and diverse passengers. Life in the UK requires adaptability, especially when it comes to getting from one place to another. Navigating public transportation is less about speed and more about observation, timing, and learning to flow with the system. And though it can be frustrating, each successful journey brings a quiet sense of accomplishment and occasionally, a funny story to tell. Yes, the UK has fish and chips. Yes, they have pies and Sunday roasts. But life here isn't all hearty pub meals. Veggies are limited, spices are mild. Fast food can be expensive. I tried my first full English breakfast in a cafe. 2 sausages, beans, black pudding, and bread that looked like a sponge. I stared at it for a solid 5 minutes before realizing I had to eat it. And yet, over time, I learned to appreciate the charm. Pub culture, cozy meals, and a cuppa at 4 p.m. Comfort isn't about taste, it's about ritual. The UK has unspoken rules everywhere. Don't stand on the left of the escalator unless you're walking. Queuing isn't optional, it's religion. Polite disagreement is common. Shouting is almost never acceptable. I tried to skip a line once. The glare I received could have frozen the Thames. Lesson: in the UK, patience and politeness aren't just habits. They're survival tools. Even when you speak the language and follow the rules, being a newcomer can feel strange. I remember walking into a local pub. Everyone seemed to know each other. I smiled, sat down, and suddenly realized I was invisible. It's subtle, but it's real. British culture can feel insular. Friendships take time, trust is earned, and humor is tricky. You have to learn the rhythms, the sarcasm, the small gestures. Otherwise, you remain on the outside looking in. Life in the UK isn't just stressful, it's hilarious too. I once got lost in a small village with zero mobile signal and ended up following sheep. I learned that apologizing excessively is not only polite, it's required. I discovered British humor can be so dry that I laughed only a week later, hours after the joke. Drama and comedy are intertwined here. Every day is an adventure and every mistake becomes a story to tell. So yes, the UK looks magical in pictures, movies, and Instagram stories. But life here is complicated, funny, frustrating, and charming all at once. The weather is relentless, costs are high. Language can feel like a code. Social rules are strict, and feeling like an outsider, that's part of the journey. But over time, the quirks, the rituals, and the people start to feel like home. You laugh more, you adapt faster, and somehow you begin to love the chaos. If you're thinking about moving here, don't remember, no one warned you about this life, but now you know what to expect. This is Global Pulse, exploring real life, real culture, and the unexpected truths of living abroad. Like, subscribe, and join us for more stories from every corner of the globe.